Okay, let's talk about working in Australia. Um, I live in Melbourne. I came to Melbourne a year ago for my study, and I have been working pretty consistently. Not ever since I came to Melbourne, but very much soon after I came to Melbourne, I started working maybe like only 3 or 4 months after I arrived. So I want to share a bit of my experience to you so that whoever's watching this video having the intention of coming to Australia, working while studying, or who is basically um, trying to look for work, maybe you can share some a bit of your insight as well, to see if this is something that you're experiencing, or am I missing something. Please let me know in the comment. So the first thing that I want to say you would want to watch out for is that if your entire plan to come here and study and to fund yourself is by working, I strongly suggest that you need to carefully consider that option, because I'm not gonna say that finding job is extremely difficult, but it is difficult because there is a good chance that whatever the type of work experience you have in your home country, they might be irrelevant to uh, the work standards here in Australia, right? And I'm gonna say it straightforward. Like if you're from an Asian countries, um, or any other place that have significantly different culture to Australia, you're going to struggle with habituating yourself with the work culture here in Australia. Because the way, let's say you work in a restaurant in China, um, the way you greet customers, the way you serve your customer, they are very different from the way that people work and serve the customers here, right? So it's I think it's not to be expected that you can just come in and do a good job straight away, right? So that's the first thing, right? You should expect some frictions. You should expect that you have to be willing to unlearn and relearn the ways of doing things to be able to work here. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that uh, if you're like me, before I come to Australia, I had this wild imagination that I will be able to work as much as I like. There will be plenty of job. Well, there are plenty of jobs, that's undeniable, but jobs are for qualified, for skilled people. For any job that you see posted, they are they're extremely competitive. Let's say you are applying to wash dishes, right? Something that most people would consider to be very low skilled, right? Anybody can wash the dish, right? But then you would find it hard to believe that there would be at least hundreds, not like two, 300 people, but 80, 90 other people who are also applying for the same role, right? So as an employer that's having this influx of profiles of different workers, what would you do? Well, you would want the best dishwasher to come to your restaurant and work, right? So the second thing you should expect is that you need to be ready for the competitiveness of the job market, right? So the third thing that you should expect is that, okay, now you've gotten a job, right? But they only want you to come in to work for Tuesday or Wednesday. Um, but what would you do in the other days that you don't work, right? That's something that I find extremely like uncomfortable with when I first think about it, when I first experience it, because there's no set agreement of how many days that you can work, or, or how many days they expect you to come in to work, right? If there is work, they'll get you to come and work. If there's no work, stay at home. That's the nature of casual work, right? I'll say you have more consistent hours in restaurants, in positions like dishwashing or kitchen hand or cleaning. Those are those I think those offer pretty stable hours. But let's say if you work front of house, if you work as a barista, you might experience some fluctuation in working hours, because as an employer, they do not want to rely on just one employee. So that's why they have a roster, right? So if you show your employer that you're good at what you do, that you're reliable, then they will bring you in more and more. So that's how you can um, get more work hours, if that makes sense, right? So it's like a system of trust, right? So if they give you one day to come and work, they don't trust you that much, right? But as you come in and then you prove yourself that you're capable of doing the job, they'll bring you in more and more. That's that's showing the level of trust has increased. That's another thing, working hours. And I think there's one more thing, one last thing, because about pay. This is extremely important to understand. For when I first, before I come, I did my research. I saw that the minimum wage in Australia is now $26 an hour, right? When I saw that, I thought to myself, okay, if I just work like for how many hours a day, how many days a week, I'll earn this much, right? But you gotta understand, there are work that do not pay accordingly to the um, what was that? The awards rate, Australian awards rates. They don't pay that accordingly, and they pay cash. They don't pay you via TFN or ABN. That's something you have to learn later, ABN. But I think most of you, when you watch this video, you have an idea of what a TFN is, right? It's basically a tax file number. So if like a uh, business that is trying to do the right thing, they'll pay you via TFN. So they'll do the tax for you, and what you receive is after tax. But most of the time when you come here, you don't have the experience. Um, you are struggling with the language. You don't know anybody. You have no connections. Uh, most people, I say, they start with cash job, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, is it against the law? Yes, it is. But other than those jobs, can you find any other jobs that pay on the books? If you can, go for it. But if you don't, and you still need to pay the bills, what are your options? Right? So most people, here's what they do. They come in Australia and they start with cash jobs. When they gain some experience, when they get better, when they get more comfortable with the language, when they know how to survive the interviews and to do the work properly, that's when they start moving out of those cash jobs and start applying to the more well-established business, right? Because that's what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants consistent hours. Everybody wants to get paid on the books, and yeah. Uh, so, but if you really want to do those jobs, I want to say it's extremely competitive. You have to be ready that you are the best at what you do. You're not necessarily have to be the best, but that why the way I'm saying it, because that's the attitude that you need to have. You come in, you need to be the best at what you do. You need to have the best attitude. You need to have the best skills, and hopefully with a little bit of luck, you can land a good job for to fund your studies. I think there are other like hidden aspects of the job market that um, that mm, that are definitely going on, like internal hiring. That's definitely happening. Like when you see a Chinese restaurant, I don't reckon you find a European working for them, right? You only see Chinese waitresses and Chinese waiters, chefs, and kitchen hands. When you see a Vietnamese coffee shop, you only see Vietnamese people working there, right? So you don't have the connection, and you don't want to work like for the for your for the community of your background, right? Then you need to find work where they hire people based on competence, right? So that's the way to go about it. Um, and you'll see that like the Indians, I think they have dominated the logistics and supply chain industry. You'll find that all the Uber drivers are Indians, uh, all the truck drivers, all the delivery jobs, the warehouse jobs are very dominated by the Indians. And I know it's probably stereotypical, but that's what I've come to observe.